what's up?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966. 66!
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. Please, if you're feeling up to it, leave me a 5-star review. That stuff helps so more people can hear from people like our guest today, Keegan Valaika, on the show. Truly somebody who I personally have drawn a lot of inspiration from, and most likely you have in one way or another. Keegan has one of the best styles in snowboarding, hands down. Can't argue that. His style looks like he's skateboarding, snowboarding, and surfing, and he combines all three of those, as well as maybe some music and some art, into this masterpiece year in and year out. He's probably had over a decade of super iconic video parts that are, this word gets thrown around loosely, but are timeless. You can throw on any Keegan part and go back all the way to the Bozrec 3000, to any Absinthe film, to some of his Adidas stuff, and all of them are absolutely, they're perfect. They're masterpieces, without a doubt. I watched all of his footage in a timeline, basically, and got to see just how talented and how stylish this individual has really been over the last decade. And let me tell you, there's not a lot of people who have filmed snowboarding so tastefully for that long. Growing up in Laguna Beach, California, riding at Big Bear, winning hot dogs and handrails in 2004, winning Snowboarder Meg's Urban Gibber of the Year in 2009, filming for Bozrec 3000. He signed with Adidas and Burton, and now he's riding for Sims. We talk about music and painting, and of course, more importantly, things like mental health. This is an amazing episode with somebody who, doesn't like to share his whole life and his personal life on Instagram and stuff. So it was nice to get a glimpse into what Keegan's doing these days, as, not just myself, but a lot of us are interested in just what he's up to. Thanks for coming on the show, Keegan. Big fan. Enjoy, everyone. Now, a quick word from our sponsors and then sponsor. Vans, the best shoes in the world. Whether men's, women's, kids, boa, hybrid, lace, most flexible, most support. What are you into? Vans has a complete collection of the best snowboard boots out. From the Infuse to the Verse to the High Country and Hellbound Sam Taxwood Pro Model, and other famous boots, or now coming to be famous boots, the High Standard Linerless DX. This boot will allow you full freedom for tweakage. The High Standard Linerless DX, or if you snowboard, or if you just want to ride like you're, in the 80s and 90s again and do a crooked cop, but do a crooked cop, you know what I mean? Do that shit proper. Anyways, check out vans.com, vans.ca, or any of your fine snowboard shops, and they will get you laced up for the season, where you will have no regrets, no restraints. Also, check out the Jay Kuzik High Standard OG, just because he's my boy. Check him out. We have Keegan Valaika on the podcast. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man.
How you been?
All right. I got this C. diff infection I was telling you about, but other than that, I've been pretty good. Just doing the same old shit,
Well, what's the same old shit for you? You live? Are you posted up? I know that you were, born and raised in California. You kind of like ping ponged around. Are you in California right now? Like, where's home base for you?
Yeah, I'm in Laguna right now. Sorry, my dog's trying to eat these fucking headphones. Yeah, I was surfing a lot. It just recently started to get cold again here, so I haven't been in the water. Been playing music, painting. Yeah, I'm trying to refinance my house, figure out how to keep my house, and yeah, just trying to enjoy life, I guess.
I love it, dude. So I'm curious to know, growing up in California, was surfing the first thing you would have gotten into then? Is that like was that the
So
go?
yeah, I mean, it definitely was. We had a surf team at my high school, but I was never that good at surfing. So it was like, it was one of those things that I really struggled to like get on the surf team because you got to miss first period a lot. And obviously, just being on surf teams, right? Because you get to go surf instead of go to school. So I scraped my way onto that. I think I was probably like the last alternate or something. Like I never actually competed when we'd go to different schools and stuff or surf against like San Clemente or whatnot. But it was, yeah, it was great. Nevertheless, hey, don't eat that.
Would you guys have like matching wetsuits then if you guys like were on a team and stuff? Would it be like
No, you wear like, I mean, you've seen the CT stuff. They just give you you wear like a rash guard, like a different colored rash guard when you surf, and that's how they know who's in the water and who's like in the lineup or whatever. But no, we didn't have like team uniforms or anything.
I'm so envious of that. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in like Manitoba, and we definitely didn't have any surfing. But at a young age, my dad used to, when he was a kid, spend a lot of time in Hawaii.
Hmm.
And back in like the 60s and 70s, not a lot of people from like central Canada used to just travel the world. I think that's like the norm now with kids is like you get out of high school and you want to go see some shit. Well, my dad was kind of like an early explorer, you could kind of say. And
Yeah.
he spent a lot of his time, his youth for quite a few years actually in Hawaii. So he was like talking to me about surfing and like I was like, what is this thing? So I was always so intrigued by it.
Yeah.
So at a young age, did your dad get you into this? Like who would have, or just because you were beside?
No, my dad's not much of a surfer. I mean, yes, I guess like I probably started snowboarding like around the same time I tried to start surfing. I wasn't like, an early adept surfer or anything. Yeah, it was more like my friends, I guess, just being in high school or grade school. And um, I really like, I kind of barely surf. I would skimboard a lot more. And then when we got to high school, it was like there was no skim team, so I had to like make the surf team. So I basically had to learn how to surf then. Like,
You're like, yo, what about that skim team? They're like,
yeah,
we don't got one. You're like,
no.
what? That's a buzzkill. I just learned big spins today.
Yeah. No, that was like definitely more of myself and like my friends. That was our scene was more like skimboarding. It's closer to skating and stuff.
Did you have a bag of tricks on the skimboard? Like, could you like shove and stuff like that?
I don't know. I mean, I could like pull a few things out of my ass here and there, but I definitely wasn't like one of the better ones in the crew.
I saw a video not too long ago of this guy who like runs as fast as he can from the
Mhm.
beach with a skimboard into like a small little wave, and he does a front big spin and it's like 10 feet high. It's
Yeah,
insane. It's like so
man.
G.
They are. I mean, they're incredibly good. Like, it would blow your mind. I mean, even back then, people were just really had no perspective for it. That when you'd say skimboarding or like mention it, that you'd think like those little wood boards, in like just like 2 inches of water doing nothing. But it's like these guys ride like the side wave that comes in and banks off a pier or the rocks and creates like a full side wave that you ride all the way out into the main wave, which then like A-frames because they wedge together and then they get a freaking in and out barrel on the main wave, like where like at places like the wedge where you're going into like surfers and bodyboarders and they like end up on the same wave as those dudes. I've seen guys hop off of their skimboard and land on someone's boogie board that they like ditched and surf it in on the boogie board. It's mental.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Was skating in the mix too at this time then? Like were you snowboarding, skateboarding, and surfing, or is it just kind of the two?
Yeah, I think skating was probably the first thing. I was just like the most accessible, I guess, for me. I just, take off the driveway and like I think my dad got me a skateboard for like Christmas or my birthday when I was pretty young. Had like a frog on it. Um, so yeah, skating. Yeah, it was all going on at the same time. Skimming and skating, I'd say like that was like what we'd do. We'd skate all the way across fucking town because we couldn't drive yet to like get to the beach we wanted to skim at, and then do that all day, and then skate back or you know.
What would have been your closest resort then? Were you like Laguna Beach? I don't really
It
know exactly where that is. Like, are you
yeah,
going to
it's
Bear or
yeah, pretty much Big Bear or Mountain High actually, but Mountain High is just garbage, dude.
is
It's
it
so
wild
bad.
that someone says Mount High, the only name that comes to my head is Corey Kronk. Like, I don't think of
Yeah,
anybody
no,
else
he was
except
like
for him.
he was the local legend for sure. Him and Kyle LaPiccolo. Um, yeah, I mean that it was that mountain is just so bad, dude. Like just all like that shitty fake ice snow that just grabs your edges, you know, and it's hard
It's
to
worth it. It's worth the drive to head up to Big Bear.
it totally like Big Bear's probably an extra 30 minutes and really and it's so worth it. I'd do that every time
Have
once
you
I
ever
figured that out.
have you ever had a pow day at Big Bear?
Um, kind of, yeah, I have. I've not like I wouldn't, you know, compare it's a pow day, yeah.
I feel like I've seen like a few edits way back in the day with like Johnny Miller and MFM, and they're like kind of riding POW like in the trees at Bear, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I saw Bradshaw posted like a run he took at Bear. Like he hiked way up and it looked pretty sick actually. But yeah, I haven't really gotten too much. It's not all that steep there, you know. So even if it were to snow, you venture off and there's not much base. So it might look
No.
like POW, but then you're hitting sharks and shit.
Like, did you feel like when you were riding Bear that you were the luckiest person ever growing up? Because I feel like any kid I talked to growing up, it's just like Snow Summit, and then after like the whole forum thing dissipated, like early 2000s when like Sunday in the parks just started getting like
Hmm.
invented. It was like every kid that I would ever cross paths with is like, yo, one day, dude, my dream is to go to Big Bear. Like, if I win the
Yeah,
lottery, I'm going to Big Bear.
for sure. It was like Disneyland for snowboarding.
I know. Did you know that though?
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, especially uh, in comparison to like Mountain High, you know, once I made it up to Big Bear and I like became friends with like the Mazzatis and Bradshaw and I mean it, you know, Harrison and Scott and it was just like a really good crew scene there. You know, I think Carlino and Meyer were there too, and it was like it was a really good scene and everything there was so fun, you know, like they just had such I mean, just so much, you know. It was like ADD snowboard park. You're just like ping ponging all over the place. You it'd be hard to take a run there and like be bored, you know.
Exactly. It's just like the best place ever. Growing up, like I mentioned earlier, like from Winnipeg, we just never had anything that tight to ride on. And then watching Bear, it was like the most innovative park ever, and every single border that was like the dopest was like riding there. It was like,
Hmm.
Daryl Mathis and everybody from like Neo Proto, like
Yeah.
everybody was riding at that place. And I was just like, damn, like I want to go to Bear so bad. Because all of our rails were set up like 2-inch pop on, but by the time the rail ended, it was like 8-foot drop.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like didn't make any sense. Like
for
you couldn't
sure.
hit that shit from the side. Bear
Yeah,
was like the first place that was like you could go and like hit shit from the side, and they were
yeah.
like pretty progressive with like making shit actually fun.
I think that was Clayton. Yeah, like a lot of that lands that's from Clayton and I'm sure like Bradshaw and everyone having some input, you know,
Big time.
helped it be that way. But I mean, I was just it just popped in my head was like that S rail they had. I mean, you don't see shit like that anymore. It's like it was like a little tube, you know, like your standard fucking little tube S rail, and like that thing was not easy to get to the end of, but it'd be such a fun challenge because the the parks the lift's so fast there, you know, like you could end up hitting that thing like a lot, or you could just hike it. They had this little section at the bottom that was just kind of I don't know, just they'd switch it up all the time, but it was I don't even think you had to buy a lift ticket if you wanted. You could just go and hike that all day, and it was all good. But it had like really cool rails in it, and the hike was so minimal. It wasn't steep or anything.
My first time I ever went to Bear, I stayed at Gabby Maiden's house,
Yeah,
and like way back in the day,
yeah, she's awesome.
probably 15 years ago or so. And I was exactly doing that. I was there for 4 days, and it was 4 or 5 days, and it was our last day. And I was back lipping the smallest down rail right at the bottom, and my board just flexed so much because kind of coming in hot, it like caught in the snow, and I separated my shoulder 3rd degree, and almost had to get surgery. And I was posted up at Gabby's house for like 10 days, and her mom and dad had to like take care of me and shit. It was fucked up.
That's
Just like
rough,
the guy
dude.
who was like, yo, can I stay at your house for a few days? And then their parents are like, whoa, we did not know that we were going to have this burden for so long.
Yeah.
Oh,
Second
yeah.
son. That's cool. They're
you were-
they're great people. I'm sure they took good care of you.
Oh yeah, I mean, her dad's an epic musician too. Like I didn't really know that. It's like the Hall of Fame going in there, all of his record collection and stuff
Oh,
like that.
really?
Like epic. Like,
Yeah.
would you know the band he was part of?
No, but someone told me like one time, but I mean, I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a pretty like famous like
Was it Shaka Khan or
yeah,
something? Is that
exactly.
right?
Yes. Yeah, that was it. And I was like, damn. And then we were like playing some of the tunes. I was like, I know this shit. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that your dad was such a famous musician.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking care of me.
Yeah.
When you were going up to Bear, where would you stay? Would you stay at the Mazzatis then? Or because I mean,
Yeah, pretty
it's
much.
not too close to Bear.
Denise was like second mom to me. She was just the best. I was still really young at that point, and I would just go up there and be like, get a ride with whoever I could, and then just stay for, I mean, at least the weekend. I'll go up Friday, stay at the Mazzatis all weekend, and then get a ride back down. But yeah, I'm so grateful for her and those kids. They're the best. I stayed with them way more than normal relationship would be. And
I
then
feel
Lucy,
like she's that mom though.
yeah, she's the best. Like she's just so caring, nurturing, like just a sweetheart.
Midget Mafia era, when those like I remember when I first got on Tech 9, it was like those kids were like the dudes on Tech 9 when I was like the same age, and I was like, damn, like I want to be on Midget Mafia. It's like the same kind of tip.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like all Bradshaw influence. I remember we were all just like Bradshaw was God at that point.
It still is for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, at that
he's the
you
best.
were riding for World at that point then, and like Bonfire. Were those your first 2 sponsors or?
Yeah, World and then Bonfire shortly after, I think.
Now there's kind of a story with that whole World Industries, if I'm correctly here, or I heard it through the grapevine. Maybe it's just another fucking myth, but like you were like friends with Scheckler or some shit, and he was on World, and he like kind of got you on World or something, or?
Yeah, I actually went to grade school with Shex, and he was like they're starting I used to skate with him. I was like definitely not as good at skating, but I'd go over to his house and skate Tony Hawk's vert ramp and shit, and it was crazy. He would just like, I mean, just packages all day every day. I just remember like every time I'd go over there, it'd be like boxes from all these different skate companies, and be like, yeah, you want this, like so much shit he couldn't even get rid of it all. But I mean, through that he knew I snowboarded, yeah, and I think he was just like, he heard something about them. I think actually he went on the trips with us. That was the thing. They just threw him on the team, even though maybe he didn't really snowboard. It was like, yeah, Grayson and then and Tanner. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. The initial thing was just like a Wendell's trip, right? They paid for us all to go to Wendell's for a week, and that was kind of the beginning of it, I think, that I remember. It was cool though, yeah.
I remember the photo. I don't know why. Like I kept all my old magazines, but there's a photo in particular of Tanner doing like a board slide or something like that when he was like 12, and it was a World ad.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I really wanted to go to Wendell's, and he's like hitting the sick flat bar and doing it. I was like, damn, like World Industries makes boards, and this Tanner kid is sick.
Yeah. Tanner sick.
Was so sick growing up.
He's still sick, man. That kid is so talented, like in many ways. But I remember him being a really good snowboarder.
Skater too. We did a little skating with him on some of the Vans trips, and I was like, he was like the quiet guy just filming, and then he would put his camera down and then just like fuck something up.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool.
So so Bear Mountain obviously being your home mountain, home of the goggle sag kind of Matt Hammer era electric.
I think that's
Were
more like Mammoth, the goggle sag, right? Like that was
really? I
Matt
always felt
Hammer. That's more
yeah.
Mammoth to me.
Yeah, maybe I'm just the Winnipeg kid that puts it all into one big basket.
Yeah, I guess
California to me is just like the same place. But to you, you're like,
totally.
yo, that's not our shit.
Yeah, no, but I'm just like I probably do the same thing, just like overgeneralize Canadians.
So did the bonfire kind of hookup just come with the whole world industry package, or were they just like, yo,
No,
we'll throw
so
you on bonfire?
when we were there for that thing, Bonfire had a contest and it was like a rail jam, and I think I won that. And then uh, Brad Stewart was like, you know, hey, you want to ride for Bonfire, kind of a thing.
And you were down?
Yeah, because at that point it was like Benedict and Dirksen. And I was just like, fuck, are you kidding me? Like, this is the coolest. I mean, I think even Travis Parker rode for him at that point, if I'm not mistaken. It was like the coolest team. You know, it was basically like robot food. I was like, of course I want to be on Bonfire.
It was a good look. I remember posting an ad not too long ago of you in it, and you're like, "Yo, where did you find this thing?" I was like, old magazine that I kept, dude. It's like super vintage, but it's crazy because you weren't just like some kid who was getting flow shit. I mean, they were running ads of you World and Bonfire, so it's like you got put on the team pretty heavy, like
Yeah,
quickly. I feel like because
yeah, I guess. It's that was so long ago, you know, it's like hard to remember it if it's accurate in my mind or not. But I definitely remember going on like I mean I met a lot of cool, really influential people at that time, like Chris Owen and guys like that, you know, who were already like legends in other facets of snowboarding, and who've remained friends, you know, which is really cool. And always like some more than others, but like lended good advice and stuff. And yeah, it was, I don't know, it was a weird time, man. It was a long time ago.
I know bringing up those folders in your brain is kind of hard because it's like, are they really? They're not really a clear memory. It's just like the less that you talk about them, the more they become this like distant thing that you're just like, yeah, like that did happen. I don't remember how any of it happened, but it
Yeah,
did.
yeah. I have that kind of memory where I like it. I don't remember anything, but if someone strikes a chord, I can like it'll come back in usually like pretty pretty detailed terms. But I mean, just as far as like your average, like, hey, tell me something about this, it's like blank, you know. I'm like got to be
Well,
pretty specific. They're like, oh, you remember that like burrito on that day? I'll be like, oh, I do remember that burrito.
yes. Speaking of burrito, I had a bomb ass burrito the other day. Nobody cares, but I mean, it was fucked up good. The
Yeah,
Mexican place that was full, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna go cross the street to that other Mexican place because it's not full. And
yeah,
now that place, little did I know, was way better. The other place was probably better at like marketing and social media, but this other
hmm,
place was like a Mexican burrito place. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
like that guy doesn't know fuck all about social media, but he makes a bomb ass burrito.
That's what's up. You got to go to the cutty spots, especially like Mexican food. It's it might the appearance is like I don't know, throws you off, you know, because it sometimes the grimier looking ones are like usually the best tasting and whatnot.
The hole in the wall burrito places that are like in between two buildings, the really
Totally.
narrow ones. I'm always like, damn, that place looks so good.
Hmm. Yeah, we got a lot of good Mexican food down here. I probably eat Mexican food 5 days a week.
I used to think I know what Mexican food was, and then my first trip to California, I was like, whoa, this is how Mexicans cook their own food. I was just living, I go to a Mexican place and be all white people that are Ukrainian making you food, and it's just like doesn't taste like Mexican food at all.
Yeah, yeah, you got to get the authentic stuff.
So 2004, you win hot dogs and handrails. Do you remember that at all?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I remember Joe Carter being there and just pushing like such good vibes, and I swear his juice like just psyched me out and like helped me so much at that time. But it was cool. It was just one of those things where I was like, I think I barely got in. I don't know how I even got into the contest, really, you know. So it was like the underdog story. Like everyone was pushing for me. You could just feel the energy. It was like it just made it just like happened. You know, I don't even know. I wasn't. It didn't seem like work or anything. That's for sure. It's like just fucking snowboarding.
I remember when you had like a fakie backtail 270 in that, and that trick wasn't really invented at that point, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I think a few people had filmed that clip before, but that trick didn't really come in hot until like 2010. So I was like, whoa, like switch backtail 270? Like, who the fuck does that? Like at that point, the front blunt 270 was kind of just coming in pretty hot, like, and the front blunt switch ups and stuff. But the fakie backtail 270, like, no wonder you won.
Yeah, I think I got to give Kronk credit for that one because I mean he was doing. I think he did the fakie back lip or whatever you would call it, you know. And I through trying to learn that and emulate him, ended up adding the 270 or whatever. But it's pretty much Kronk, you know.
Yeah, shout outs Corey Kronk.
Yeah.
So that translates into what? What was the outcome from that event? You go home, mom and dad are like, you won? You're like, I fucking won. And then you get on Burton or some shit. Like
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even remember if Driscoll was there or if like he hit me up after, but it was shortly thereafter that Driscoll hit me up and offered me like a full blown contract ride for Burton, and I didn't really have any obligations as far as like contests went. I think it was like, you know, do some rail jams here and there if you feel like, but it wasn't like, yeah, the contract definitely didn't stipulate that I had to do a do tour or anything like that, you know.
I feel like there was a lot of pressure in the 2005 era to 2010 that if you were a rail kid, your sponsors wanted you to go to the rail jams that were everywhere then. Like the ones that like Mike Casanova and Lucas Magoon were winning. I feel like every kid was back in the day doing those.
Yeah, those were there was definitely an era there where those were just like huge. They were everywhere you looked, you know. And Lucas I think Lucas made like over 100 grand in 1 year doing those, and then didn't pay taxes on it and got like totally screwed. But like I remember that era for sure. Like it was, yeah, probably Nova and then Gooner, and they both of those dudes probably pretty much won every single one of them.
I used to think that those things were so sick, and then I did a few of them, and I I would never, there's such a bad time to me. Like, I just
Oh,
like, fuck. It's like so many people watching you, and
yeah,
then you haven't snowboarded for a few days. You're in this slippery drop in with 25 other snowboarders from around the world that you don't know any of them. And they're all just, and then there's the few super competitive ones that are trying to like
yeah,
snake you off to like, get an extra lap in because it's a jam format. And you're like, just
yeah,
go, dude. Just
yeah.
fucking go.
Yeah, it's I don't remember it being so stressful, but like yeah, it definitely wasn't always fun, that's for sure. The setups were more than anything I remember the setups being so sketchy, just like ice and ruts and you turn your board, basically like you might as well have been on one of those magic carpets, you know, like you couldn't even use your edges. You just hop and then you're right there at the thing and you got to like try your trick. It was so
Yeah,
sketchy.
you drop in, you snowboard for 8 feet, and then
Yeah.
you go cab over 270.
Yeah, after probably like, you know, especially the ones in Vegas and shit, it's like you haven't even ridden your snowboard on anything other than that in like days probably. You're lucky, you know. For me, it's probably like a week or more.
And then if you land your trick bolts, like you go like full Eddie Wall back 270 and then land perfect, you go out so fast into the crowd. Like if you
Yeah,
actually stomp your trick legit in one of those events and you're not doing like tail 270 and scrape the whole thing around, you
yeah,
go out way too fast.
yeah. They were like leg beaters too, because that landing would almost be uphill. I remember. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, that's a brutal thing that you plugged there, though. I didn't really know that Lucas made that much money, 100K, and then doesn't pay taxes. Like, fuck, he's probably looking back on that. Like, why didn't anybody tell me? Like, I was a
Yeah,
child.
I mean, I could be wrong. I swear he told me that at one point. Like, I know I mean, we all remember him winning like all of them, you know. I definitely
Like
know
all of them. It's
literally
true.
all of them. He was unstoppable, dude. There was not one he didn't win. He was just so on fire at that point.
Just back when 80 switch nose press, half cab tap, and then it would just be like another one in the bag.
Dude, yeah, everything was too easy for him. He was so great.
Yeah, I was a big fan. So when did you start? What was your first video part? Like when did that happen?
Uh, fuck, I guess Bozrek. I think. I mean,
Because you were on
maybe.
Burton and you were like, "Can somebody put me in a movie?" And they were like, "No." And then you were like, "Well, fuck it, I'll film with my homies."
Yeah, I think it was like I wanted to be. I'd probably gone on a film trip or two with Burton, but it was like not my scene, or maybe with like Jer or
I
something.
remember you and Jeremy riding those
Um,
crazy North Star rails together. Looked like a bad time.
yeah, so it just wasn't like it just wasn't my scene, and so when I met Nate and we were like friends outside of snowboarding, it seemed like a no-brainer, and I obviously like loved that movie. I loved Bozrek, and I was like, yeah, definitely want to be a part of this. And it was a pretty easy pitch. I mean, I don't think I didn't think of it if it weren't for Driscoll. You know, I wouldn't have expected Burton to support me in that. But Driscoll is just the man, and he kind of just backed me in the like backed whatever I wanted to do.
Isn't that's that's so important that you have those people in your life that are like they believe in you. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
like everybody, if you had a regular team manager, 90% of them would have been like, "Fuck no, you're not filming with Nate and Maddie Ryan for a full year." Like you serious? Like you're a child. Like you need to be going to these events, especially on a company as strict as Burton at that point. Like
Yeah.
I feel like Burton in the middle of the 2000s, there it was like riding for like a or having like the most strict parents in the world, and you have to sneak out at night to have any fun.
Yeah, I mean, other than the fun that they allow you to have and help facilitate, which is a whole nother story.
But that's amazing. What was it like to film with Bozrek? Like, were you homies with these people, or your first time filming with that crew? Were you kind of like, did you feel like the little kid who was kind of like out of place, or were you like immediately like, these are my
No,
homies?
it was pretty easy because Kale was doing it too, and Kale and I were good friends. I think we might have been living. I had moved to Utah maybe the year after Bozrek. I can't remember. It's like a little fuzzy in my head, but either way, Kale was doing it too. We were the same age, so we were kind of like are each other's confidants. Like we if those dudes would go out to the bar, like it'd just be Kale and I hanging at the fucking hotel room. It'd be like,
Wait for them to come back.
yeah, they'd come back like with some hooker and just all sorts of crazy shit. But it was like, yeah, we always had each other.
Those are probably some of the best memories ever. We probably look fondly at them now. Sometimes I feel like when you're in those moments, like I've had some party nights with like older people that were like in the Wildcats or whatever with Kale Stevens and stuff like that. And you're like,
Mhm.
whoa, this is get it. You're like 17 years old and, like back at the hotel, just like having some beers, hoping to go out and like make out with the chick or get like a hand job. And then they come back with like strippers and they're partying and fucking, you're like, holy fuck, this is a whole nother world that I've like,
Yeah, really like eye-opening at a younger age when that wasn't my world. But it was cool. They never like peer pressured me or anything, any of us to like do anything they were doing. It was just like, we're not gonna adjust what we're doing because you're here. You're human. You can see this. It's like, make your own choices, kind of a thing.
yeah, it's tough in those situations. I feel like it's tough to like make the right decision though. Looking back, it's like, I made some right ones, made from some wrong ones, and you kind of learn from it. But it's
Yeah.
tough when you're like luckily you had Kale there, you had a homie. Cause
Yeah.
like if you're like fully alone in those kind of situations, it's super easy to just kind of go
Oh,
with the flow.
totally. Like, yeah, it helps so much to have someone in your corner. Like, otherwise, if you're like literally the one person out, it's so hard. It still happens to me. You give into the peer pressure and whatnot. But uh, yeah, Bob Plum was on a lot of those trips with us too,
Oh,
and
Bob's the best.
he was also like, he's older than those guys, and he's always been more mellow. So he was kind of like a dad on the trip, looking out for us too, in a way.
That's amazing. You kind of need that dad figure every once in a while. Someone to be like, yo, like I'm down with all this shit because this is part of snowboarding and part of just life almost. But like I'm looking out for you. And you're like, thanks, dog.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, yo, you guys probably don't want to go to this after party. I'll go home with you guys.
yeah, exactly. Just like that.
I mean, that year you were pretty, it's like the classic young kid with like, you know, you get in that hot dog and handrails event, and you said you feel like everyone's got your back and you're like the underdog. I mean, Burton, your team manager, has your back going into this project. And I mean, I felt like you had something to prove that year because you were fucking, there was, when you have a crew that you like filming with and you like their style of filming, the vibes, it's so much easier to stack footage
Yeah,
because there's not like this like weird pressure of getting together with like three guys you don't really know and then a filmer and a photographer, and the photographer is like, yeah, I flew in, I'm here for 2 days, and then I leave, and it's like there's no
yeah,
vibe. And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like I felt like when you filmed that part, it was like it just showcased like a young kid being thrown into the thick of it with like Nate Bozung, one of the best street rail riders. And it's just like the vibe on those trips looked like the best. Like those
yeah.
videos were so good and you fucking killed it.
Yeah, it's just it was natural, you know. I think with anything, it that's like more important. It's supremely like undervalued or underappreciated. You know, like these sponsors and people think they can just like throw a random fucking conglomeration of people together who like are not friends and have completely conflicting philosophies on life, but we're gonna go do something great. No, like a bunch of musicians who like play completely different types of music together and being like, make a band, make me a good song right now. It's like it's just not gonna work, you know. You gotta the vibes gotta be right.
That was so well put. I've never heard that like analogy, but that's exact. You're throwing like a house DJ in with like someone who plays like country music and then somebody else who plays heavy metal. And you're like, you just got to all meet in the middle now. And you got
Yeah,
to come up with something that's the best for the brand. It's
yeah,
like, what?
dude, totally, yeah. And then on top of that, they're like, and we kind of want it to look like this. You're like, fuck you, man. Uh,
All of
yeah,
my
it,
best seasons have been filming with like my friends. Like I've rode rails my whole life, and it's like I'll never film a part like I did. We went to Brockle's place for 2 weeks, and we filmed the mixtape, and
yeah,
it was that whole video was filmed in like 3 weeks. And it was
yeah.
just,
That's
it wasn't like hard. We were just like living at Brockle's. We had two minivans, and it was like all we wanted to do was snowboard, and we were with
yeah,
our best friends, 10 of us, and it
yeah,
was just like we would just walk around Toronto or Ottawa and just film. It was just so fucking easy. It doesn't need to
yeah,
be hard. And the
yeah.
people that are on your fucking team and stuff, if you give them like budget to film for those underdog movies and stuff like that, they're going to produce better content because they're with their homies
Dude,
or with people they even like.
absolutely. And that's been a huge frustration through the industry, you know. It's just always like fighting against that for some reason. It's just that's where all the best shit comes from. Like I wish they would just give in and like
I feel like you're
stop
the
trying to
pinnacle of
assert
that.
themselves. Yeah. Um like
There's you,
Stathis too,
yeah,
and yeah, all your
Stathis.
guys' dope movies are like a perfect example of that as well. I think that I haven't really seen much stuff these days, but that dust box thing is like those kids seem to be kind of doing something similar and like having having good making good shit out of it too, you know, because they're choosing to stick with their homies and make their own thing rather than like be pieced out into different projects with people that may not be like-minded.
I mean, some people do well, I feel like. If you look at all the Mac Dog, Kingpin movies, Standard, like that's was the norm, was like you're sponsored by them, you're from Canada, you're from the US, and you're from Iceland, and you three film together all year. That's the crew.
Yeah,
And you guys, it doesn't matter if you don't like each other, that's just how it was.
yeah,
And now I feel like for me personally and for you personally, there's certain people that I cannot produce good footage unless I'm with people that I enjoy snowboarding with. I won't. I'm in a shell. I feel weird. I don't
yeah,
have a good time. Where if I'm with my homies and they're like, dude, you should cab nine this thing. And I'd be like,
yeah,
I don't know. They're like, dude, you got this, B. Like, this is like, they know your tricks, they know your vibe. They know when
yeah,
it's like they know what's going on in your head too. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of mental shit that's going on upstairs that if you're just going to jump into some front board because you're on a Mac Dog trip with a bunch of people you're not comfortable with, you're just going to not do it good or you're going to get hurt. Where if your friends are like, dude, your girlfriend just cheated on you, your mental game's fucked, just like chill today. Like we'll
Yeah,
come back another time. And they just know.
totally. Yeah, there's like a lot of that, with good friends, like telepathy or whatever, on some level you can kind of just read a person's vibe. And when you're doing something like snowboarding, which can be fucking dangerous if you're not in the right headspace, like, yeah, you need someone around to say no sometimes. Like, hey, maybe don't do that, because I know I've definitely checked myself off things in the past where like probably should have just taken that day off or not done it. But yeah, I don't know. There's really not much more you can say, like, other than it just having friends is like in your corner when you're trying to do something like film. It's just the uh, best facilitator. I don't know. Like it's so much easier than having to do it with random people. Like that's all.
And there's a level of like, to keep on the analogy of music, because I know that, or painting even, um, when you're creating this like art piece, you can be unapologetically and so true to who you are filming that clip if you're comfortable and if you're
Yeah,
around people that you're comfortable with. I feel like your style shines through more than ever. Like you look at like Kazu and his crew of like Shuhei, Kohei, like
yeah.
that whole crew, they all ride together
Hmm.
and they just feed off each other. Like I've done a few sessions with them, and when they're together, you can just see that they're like this unstoppable trio. And
Yeah.
I do not think that if you divided those three crew into being like you film with them, you feel they would ride as good. It's just like when
Mm.
when you're with people that you like, or even like I don't need to be like best friends with people. For example, if I get dropped off and I'm riding like a hip with somebody I know is at least on the same wavelength as me, like we agree on
Yeah.
similar things and we appreciate certain like aspects of snowboarding the same, it's a lot easier to film with those people than where if I got thrown in a crew with somebody like Chaz Goldman and fucking Dan Breezy. Like those
Yeah.
guys are fucking absolute beasts, but if I were to film with them, it would be the worst time ever.
No, it's like you just literally speak a different language. It's that simple, when you're trying to film with like someone like that, for example. It's like it's seriously, it just doesn't work at all. You can't even communicate. So
So you're into music. What do you play? The guitar, bass?
lately I've been playing bass, and
Awesome.
yeah, I've been playing bass with two of my buddies. One kid that I grew up skating with, and then another friend who basically taught me music over the last like 8 years or something. But yeah, we played our first show the other night on
What?
Halloween. It was just like really mellow,
That's
obviously because of COVID and everyone was masked up and shit. But it was fun. It was funny because it came at the time when this gut thing was happening to me, and everyone was just like, "Ah, you're just like nervous. You're trying to get out of it." Like, and I'm sure I was, but it was so funny when like I went and played the show, and it was all good. And, you always feel better after, and it was like I'm glad we did it. But the next day, my doctor called me, and like I was still feeling pretty sick, and he's like, "Yeah, you have C. diff. You need to go get these antibiotics right now because this is serious shit." And I was like, "I told you guys I wasn't just nervous." Yeah, it was.
yeah.
It was.
Isn't that the pinnacle of listen to yourself? You know,
Yeah,
you're
listen
like
to your gut.
I am. Yeah, listen. Yeah, literally listen to your gut. So to bring it back to what I was gonna say is you play bass, and imagine trying to play bass for a bunch of people that like DJ. You're not
Yeah,
gonna feel comfortable playing the bass. You're just gonna be like, this is just weird. Where if you're like you're with Zach
yeah,
Marbin and Mike Rav and Harry Hagen and Scotty Arnold, and they're like, yo, play some bass for us. You're like, yeah, sure, dude, I'll jam with you guys. Like, this is mellow vibes. Like, you guys all appreciate the same type of music, but like that level of comfortability makes every artist shine.
yeah. I think yeah, I mean, you obviously want to be as comfortable as possible when creating. But I don't know. I guess like being uncomfortable produces good things too. Sometimes, you push yourself and like playing that show. Like I really didn't want to do it, but and I was mad nervous. But once, I mean, once you're like forced into the moment like that, like you, it requires such like a zoning in that you kind of lose. Once you fall into that slipstream, it all goes away anyway, I guess. And it's like you have to be there to play. So by playing, you yeah, you get rid of all that noise the instant you start playing, I guess. Yeah.
It's like flow state almost. I mean, like, what was that? Was that pretty? Once you started playing and finished, I bet you there was a pretty big high playing your first show. Like that probably felt pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it was cool. I mean, like I said, it was really mellow and whatnot, but like the juice, the music's just cool because I mean, you're like for whatever time it is. I mean, and who knows, for however real time is. I mean, you're you're actively like pushing it. Like you have to be going to stay in the moment. You know what I'm saying? So you're like, or else you're not making music. If your timing's off, you're not in the moment. So like that that engagement, I guess, and especially when you're like playing fast or doing something that like I love how it like it forces you into the moment or whatever. It keeps you present.
Do you feel similar? Um, do you feel like a similar way towards painting?
Yeah, painting for sure. Yeah, it's you it's just kind of like quieting all the other noise around when you really get into it, and it's like it's going like time just ceases to really exist. It's crazy, like when I'll come up out of it, um I'll have thought it was like 30 minutes or I've thought it was 4 hours, and it'll just always be like totally different. Like my sense of time, it just goes right out the window when I'm painting. And 8 hours could go by and I would have no fucking clue. I would not like, I would feel like it was shorter or longer. Like I would just feel like I honestly don't even know. Like it just,
And out of
just,
curiosity, do you have a few favorite painters and stuff? Like, do you have, I mean, obviously you've been painting for a long time as far as like I heard your name, I knew you snowboarded and I knew you painted. It's
yeah.
like I've known that for a while now. And so do you have some favorite artists?
Yeah. I mean, I have a ton. I mean, I, I guess Corn. I've always really looked up to him. I like Degas too. I mean, there's like a slew of people. Like, there's too many to mention. But yeah, who would I say? Like, I'm looking at recently. Um, Peter
Like,
Doig is
oh,
really
sick.
really cool. I love his paintings. He's like alive, so that's cool. But yeah, I mean, it's just a slew, dude. Like I'm a sponge. I love art books, and I like collect like they can like show you later, but like over here, just I'm just covered with art books in my house, and I'll get really into one guy for a little bit and like just read everything about him, look at everything, and then move on, and then shelf it, and then but sometimes something will remind you. You'll come back and like look at that guy for the way he figured out how to do something. Like there's yeah, everybody's got something to add. Like what Soutine, Soutine chimes.
No, I don't know very much, like very many artists. I did. My dad actually owned an auction sale growing up.
Oh.
Um, Pretty historically famous if you live in the Manitoba area because
Hmm.
it's pretty old. It's been around since like his great great grandfather owned it, so it's like been around since like 1890. And so
Wow.
they dealt a lot of like high end antiques and arts and stuff like that. So they would come across every once in a while like some pretty big name paintings. And
Cool.
um, oddly enough, there was a guy one time that my dad was a good friends with who sold him a lot of paintings, and he was going to go to he was going to go to jail. Long story short, and
Hmm.
he called him and he was like, "Yo, Dutch, I got these paintings at my place. They're locked away. I
They
need you to go
stolen?
get them because the bank. No, it's just he's had them since he moved here from Europe, and he's like, I
Okay.
have these paintings, and I'm going to jail, and these paintings can't get seized. Like they're big dollar paintings. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So he went and grabbed them, and they're like 10 Dali paintings. Like,
Wow.
and my dad actually still has them all,
Wow.
and they're in a safe now at my uncle's place or whatever. But they've taken them around to different people that could authenticate that they were true dollies.
Mhm.
And there's only 2 people worldwide that have this like signature where they can deem them as being authentic.
Yeah.
Because Dali is such a famous artist, if you were to put your signature on there and someone was to find out that they were a fake, you'd lose all your credibility.
Yeah.
So everybody we've ever taken them to has said, yes, those are real. Like everything matches, but they're too nervous to sign them off as real dollies. So we just have
Huh.
them, but like we don't know what to do with them.
Wow. I would
But
hang
they're
them up.
I know. The thing is,
Look
I'm
at them.
like my dad has them, pretty masked off because I think he would like to sell most of them, and he's not sure which one's worth more. And if you take them out, you're not supposed to like he has them all vacuum sealed and stuff like that,
Yeah,
like put
they're
away
like crazy
appropriately.
climate controlled and everything.
Exactly, exactly. So like, but I have like I'll show you some of the paintings after. They're fucked up. There's this one that's like 4 feet by like 8 feet. You roll it out, and it's just it's a girl with her hair that looks like she stuck it like an electrical socket, and her face is a clock that's all melting, and
Whoa.
it's fucking. It's what I mean. He's like, the number one surrealist painter of all time, and it's like
Yeah, he's
some
a
of his
madman.
stuff is insane. Like it's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, what a gift of like dexterity and imagination, combined, like the ability to like execute uh like anatomically correct and stuff, like, and I've heard he's just one of the fastest painters that ever lived too. Like he could just fly through a painting, and it's with that imagination. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's pretty wondrous.
I feel pretty like basic saying that he's my favorite painter, but since I was a kid, my dad's favorite painter was him because they had dealt with some of his art throughout life. And
Yeah,
my dad's like, when you see his paintings like firsthand, it's like and my dad's seen like, thousands of different famous
yeah,
artists like paintings. And he's like, those ones always spoke to my dad. And like, because I looked up to my dad, I was like, oh, he's my favorite painter. But I also don't know enough about painting to have really an opinion because I feel like I don't like go
I
to
don't
enough.
have an opinion. I mean, it's just whatever you gravitate towards. He was one of my favorites. Like when I first, fell in love with painting, it was because of his paintings for sure. Yeah, I mean, he's awesome for sure.
And do you feel like do you do the graphics for Gnarly and stuff like that? Like Gnarly, you start this clothing company, and
Um,
obviously because of some of the things we were talking about earlier, like a similar passion to like and a similar outlook to snowboarding. So you create this clothing brand, and like, do you do a lot of the designs with that, or?
it really depends. It's over the course of however many years. Like I do some of them. I don't do others. Yeah, it sometimes I want to do ones, but we've had other people who are in positions that were like, no, let's not do that. Like a lot of things I want to do probably don't sell. So
I've always been a big fan of the graphic. I mean, even from like the OG one, like just the rooted tree kind of thing,
yeah,
like the OG logo. I
yeah,
remember when Stathis first got on them, and I think E-Man and Brockle got some stickers and stuff, and I was like
hmm
immediately so captivated by that company. Where did that come from, and like why did you start that company?
we all kind of like my friend I would skim with. His name was Max. And my other buddy Dylan and my other buddy Bryce, we all kind of just like wrote it on our shit, and it was just kind of like, I guess, like our little clique or our gang or something. And our homie who worked at Exile Skimboards had a sticker machine, and so he printed a couple stickers for us. I think we used like the Harry Potter font for our first sticker.
Sick.
uh yeah, so it just kind of started like that. It wasn't really anything, but then we were like, oh, we should make a T-shirt, and then it started with like drawing pens on T-shirts, and then um, yeah, I my buddy Max got hit by a car and passed away when I was 16, and then I was flying home from New Zealand or something after just finding out that news, and I'm pretty sure that's when I drew the logo. I know I like woke up and it was like I had dreamt it, and I woke up right away and drew it. And it could have been like a plane soon after that, but it was around that time that I drew the logo. And yeah, it just like totally just like I just saw it in my dream, it was just like there, done in its entirety.
I mean, the logo was perfect, and I'm sorry to hear about your friend passing. Was it like, out of curiosity, how did he pass?
I got hit by, I mean, what
Oh,
I
sorry,
would
you mentioned that. Yeah,
assume
car.
is a drunk driver,
Okay.
but it was a hit and run, and they never found the person, so we don't
Wow.
know. Yeah, he was
Oh
riding
man.
by his girlfriend's house like late at night here in Laguna, and it was PCH, was pretty busy, like Main Street, but yeah, just got smoked out. I mean,
And then you
they say
found
it
that
was,
out when you were leaving the trip. That must have been pretty like, you
yeah.
leave a snowboard trip, you're at like an all-time high. I'm just gonna guess that you're probably there filming for like in color on like a hip or something, maybe.
I don't know. I think it was like a Burton trip. I mean, it was still pretty young at that point. It was before that. But I remember we were in like first class lounge because I was with like Luke Matroni or Mickle or someone who would have had that status, And we were sitting there in the lounge, and I got like a phone call. I think he was even Facebook and saw someone said something or like commented like RIP, and I was just like, my heart just dropped, out of my chest, like, what the fuck, this can't be real. And then I like called my friend, and he was like, yeah, and yeah, it's brutal. So
Yeah, it's never the best hearing about a passing when you're like far away. It's happened too many times for me to even. It's just the worst feeling ever. Your
yeah,
heart just drops into a million pieces. But that's amazing that you came up with that logo for him after. I mean, like it's a beautiful logo, and it's fucking. I mean, it's done well. How's Gnarly doing today? Is like, is it like what's been going on? Is it still happening? Are you kind of burnt on it? Is it going to be the re-up? Are you going to put more effort into it than ever this year?
I'm not entirely sure right now. We're the COVID thing hit weird, and before that we had some issues with like deliverables, and so I don't know. I love Gnarly as like a um like a philosophy or something, but I'm not terribly into making clothing. Like I really don't think the world needs more clothes. So I'm kind of like at odds with it in that way a lot. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I think there's a cool way to keep making stuff and keep keep it being like a force for good or whatever. But it's just been a wild ride, like clothing business is just a bitch, and like people are
It's a
always pushing
headache.
for margins, and then when you margins, you gotta like you lose quality of the gear, and then sustainability, like everything everything that I care about kind of goes downhill when you're trying to make money with a clothing business, and it's just a hard balancing act to
Well, I feel like there's a lot of when it comes to the clothing business or when it comes to any business for that matter, I feel like people get really wrapped up in the sense of my business needs to be successful, and then everybody has a different idea of what success is, and
yeah,
success needs to be reevaluated in the modern age of like you
yeah,
just said, like I like what Gnarly is, I like the idea of it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be this like massive conglomerate that just sells more clothes when we don't need that. Like
yeah,
it could Gnarly can be something else. Like it could be like, it's selling small batches of clothes that are made sustainably and they
yeah,
cost more money, but like and your idea of success is that is a successful business. That is something that like I'm doing good for the planet, and like it's still a cool thing.
yeah,
But like just mass producing blank t-shirts as cheap as you can from Indonesia and
yeah,
supporting, sweat labor and shit like that is like
That's not
a whole
cool.
just to like make a few bucks so
Yeah.
you can hang out in like, Laguna and like these other, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's amazing that that's the way you want to run your company. And if you need to take some time to reevaluate it so it can be a company like that, like, dude, you're going to come out on top anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty much where I'm at, is like just kind of trying to rethink it, or just, yeah, figure out a way to do it that is satisfying to my soul and can benefit the world in some way, other than just sheer profit margins and crap like that.
Exactly. I mean, to me, Gnarly, there's a select few companies that if you like ran into me and you're like, oh yeah, like I have a Gnarly sticker in my pocket and gave it to me, like that's a company that I would just put on my snowboard just because it's something that I support. I don't really think of it as like just a clothing company, like you said. Like I feel it
Yeah,
identifies with like a like a movement, if you want to, if you
totally.
will,
It was
or
like
like
a grenade back in the day, like it stood for
exactly.
so much more than gloves. Is like a way. Yeah, it was like I back these guys' philosophy, and it was like a
Ex-
symbol, or it's like anti-hero skateboards in that way, or something, where you're just like, fuck, man, like I just love the way that they think about things, and you want to be a part of that or whatever. And
I know
yeah,
I felt weird when I always put like a dope sticker on my board, because I mean it's my like best friends' companies. I mean Brockle and E-Man. It's like I've always loved what their ideas and like their
yeah,
philosophy around snowboarding and Brockle's passion to snowboarding and how it should remain this like this special thing and not just fucking, a Wendy's boom boom huck jam like with
totally,
like
dude,
sign up for the military like
totally.
like thing. And so I always felt weird like I haven't got I don't think Brockle really makes a lot of dope stickers anymore, but I had one last year and I was like, oh, I shouldn't put it on my board because it's controversial with K2. But then I'm like, these are like my boys. Like now like having this conversation with you, it just makes me like I'm like reconfirming to myself that like that stuff's important because that
Yeah,
stands for more than just fucking a snowboard company. That's like, dope to me is like a brotherhood, if you will. It sounds
yeah.
kind of tacky, but like that's what it is.
No, it's yeah, it's a lot more than a company, that's for sure. It's like a symbol of something.
But
Some
there's a lot of
symbols like
companies that you
color.
wouldn't put that on. Like if someone gave you a bonfire sticker, you wouldn't just be like, yeah, like let's just lace that up. You'd be
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, there's certain ones you want to be a part of, even if you're not like getting paid, or they don't just make good product. It's like, it's something else there that's hard to attach a word
And
to.
there's a niche amount of snowboard companies that exist like that. Like, there's like Howl and Salmon Arms, and there's like, you know, Autumn headwear's coming out, and like, Inspivia, like those sunglasses that homie's Jonas is making. And like, there are a few good, cool things that are happening that people should support.
Yeah, I
And if
think
it's
the
like,
Torment kids are a great example of that, doing their whole thing like that falls into that same category for me.
100%, I mean, any way that you can support snowboarding the way you feel like it should be supported, that even if it goes against what I'm standing for and what you're standing for, then the people who are, behind that can support it. But it's kind of sick. I've always thought it was dope when you like pull up in a park and you can look at someone's board, and to me, maybe I'm still just like a weird kid with stickers, but like the stickers on your board says like a lot about what you're repping. You know what I mean? Like if it just has like some weird generic shit on there, it kind of like stresses me out. Like I'd rather see, if you're gonna put some stickers on it and you're gonna like, I'd rather see some shit that like represents you as a person rather
Mhm.
than just like, like I don't know, like like a Nike check or something at the time or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like kind of sick to be like, oh, that dude's down with Howl, Gnarly. He's fucking riding for Dragon, and then he's got like an independent sticker on there, and you're like, oh, this is like who this person is. Or if they fucking like someone like Cole Naven or Rab just like draws on their board, you're like, fuck yeah. Like it's kind of like, I don't know, a
yeah,
way to
whatever
showcase what
you
you're about.
associate with, I guess, yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's like a nod to those people or those things, I guess. You're like, you know I like this, and I want people to know that I like this. It's like when you wear a band T-shirt or something, you're like,
Yeah.
I associate with this, and I think these guys are cool, and I want you to know it, or I don't care if you know, whatever. It is what it is, but
Your band, what's the name?
we don't really have a name.
Oh
Yeah,
shit, dude. That's
yeah,
an important step in the band.
yeah. I know. Well, it's kind of wasn't really a reality. It was just like we'd always jam together, and it was fun as hell. And then Christian got us like made us play the show, and we were like, fuck, man. We don't have a name. We need a name, like, because we weren't really like a band. We never considered ourselves that, but now we are.
I love it. It's official.
Yeah.
Well, you just don't have a band name yet. So do the people in your band, um do they snowboard too? Is like that their fucking life, or are they just like
No.
actual musicians live in Laguna? That's not their fucking scene at all. They're like, what? You're like, oh yeah, like UC Oxton, and they're like, who the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like,
Yeah, they definitely like. I mean, Steve snowboards, because he spends a lot of time in Utah as well. His parents kind of live in Ogden, Utah. So like I've snowboarded with him a fair bit, and we lived in Boulder together. But Christian's just a skater kid, and he's lived in like Hawaii and Long Beach, and I mean, I would say skating is more of our like common bond with those kids, other than music.
sick. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not a bad thing to bond with. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, skating, snowboarding, surfing, music, art, it all kind of like falls into the same category. Well, there's
yeah.
two, I mean, I feel like there's kind of two sides in snowboarding or skateboarding and stuff. There's like the like really competitive, like do tour aspect that some people are really passionate about, and all the power to them, do that. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of that world. And then there's the other world, you know what I mean? That like,
Hmm.
yeah, that person might not snowboard, but like for me, for example, I could go and hang out with a group of people that like just skateboard and it's pretty easy. It's just like
Yeah,
there's a lot of common ground on those terms.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely like multiple worlds, I guess, and even smaller ones within that. But I think just I mean, it's like surfing is actually the trippiest for that. Surfers can be such douchebags, and like it's it's so jockey, and like which is so counterintuitive to me, because to me surfing is like the most natural. Like you aren't imposing yourself on this thing that's not moving. You are being forced to work with something else that is moving, like you actually have to engage and read the wave. It's more like yeah, it's more like sexual or like involved, both parties, like mother nature and your style of skating or surfing. That thing is dancing with nature, whereas like snowboarding still like that. When you got some snow moving, you got some powder, some slough and stuff, you're reading it as it's moving. But skating is more of like an imposed will thing, I'd say, because it's just there. The concrete ain't moving. You can really like make it happen in a way.
You got surfing where the waves moving and it's
Yeah.
never consistent, but it's like the waves moving. Then you got skateboarding where you're moving, but the concrete doesn't ever move. And then you have snowboarding where you're moving and the snow changes consistently
Hmm.
because every track puts a different new rut in the takeoff. And you're like, oh, it was perfect to back seven last hit, but now I got to go front side or some shit because it's
Totally.
completely different.
Totally. Yeah. It's a weird thing. But I guess what I was getting at with the surfing and the moving, to me, that lends itself to like a more uh I don't know, like earth-centered approach or something. Like I don't. The words are so hard to find, but like, you would think most, and surfing does have that side of it, like a very zen. There are those guys, but there's also, especially here in SoCal, just like fucking macho man Randy Savage out there, who's like barking at you, and it's just like it's oddly aggressive and like and territorial and shit. Where the the act of surfing, it seems so opposite of that to me.
I feel like snowmobiling for backcountry access is very similar to that because it's like
Yeah.
the people that you surround yourself with in the parking lot of a sled parking lot, you're like, I'm getting out there to do this and you're going out there to do that. And we could not be more different.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that is weird. We were in where I don't know, somewhere middle of America. I can't remember, Montana or shit, I honestly don't remember, but we were snowmobiling, and yeah, it was just like fucking Trump flags and just Arctic cats everywhere you look, and like we were like one out of 80 cars there that was actually going to go snowboard. Everyone else was just there to go romp their snow vehicles around and shit. And they're looking at us like, the fuck, dude, look at this kid's busted. Of course, we're on like 2003 skidoos too, just like fucking won't start. Like, it's so funny.
Oh man. Well, on the whole like sledding thing, you've transitioned maybe better than anyone from rails to like, yeah, you still obviously ride rails. I mean, like not too long ago you'll always have that, but you've really started getting out into the backcountry these last few years, and fuck, dude, you look sick out there. Do you have a preference? Would you rather go on a rail trip or would you rather be, riding POW now?
Yeah, I would definitely rather be riding now.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's just forgiving, or it's easier on my body, aside from the sledding and digging yourself out, dude. And there's a lot of hiking, but the hiking's good because it helps my knees like build strength, whereas like street boarding, it's just flat landings. I just did that for too long, and I've just had so many knee troubles in the last 2 years that it's like I'm fucking unless that thing's got a really nice downhill landing and everything lines up, like you probably won't see me hitting it.
Nice. That's actually was my last thing. I did like a trick and I landed flat in the streets and I was like, I think I'm done. Like it's
Yeah.
like I was like, remember the day. I was like, I think this is the last time I'll ever be hitting a street rail. And
Yeah.
it was last year. I was just like, I think that after this I'm parking it. And then my one of my good friends who happens to be like kind of works at K2 texted me this year. He's like, I was like, oh yeah, like you're gonna see some new rail tricks in me this year because he always busts my balls for not filming enough street stuff. And
Yeah.
he's like, nah, dude, just film POW now. Like I was
Nice.
like, okay, sick.
That's got to feel good. Yeah, that hasn't come too often in my experience, but
I feel like that's
you got to
because
do what you want to do anyways. Like, who cares?
I mean you are the staple or one of them in snowboarding that's like do what you want to do. And I mean, it's worked out amazing for you. I mean, getting dropped by, or did you get dropped by Burton or did you quit? Was the Bozrec thing the reason why? I mean, like, I feel like that's been publicized quite a bit, but if,
Yeah, I mean, I might have been like mutual, but I don't remember. Like,
just
it
see
was
you
definitely
later.
that Bozrec thing happened. I got that cover, and then I can't even remember his name at this point, but he was like the Vans guy, and then he came over to Orem and Burton, right? Knox. Me and him just did not get along, and that was basically it. That pretty much was it, And I think Driscoll left at that time too, and it was like, he was my biggest ally, and so it was a lot of things at once.
I mean, it fell, I mean, that disappeared. And then you go to Adidas, which I feel like I think they did a really good job. I mean, they're obviously done now, but when they were putting stuff out, like between like you and Hayden and Tommy and Blauvelt, like I feel like they gave their riders a lot of like space to be who they want to be. When you started riding for them, were you happy with how the brand like kind of marketed you and told you what you should do? And
Oh, absolutely. I think, I mean, they, especially at the beginning, did a really good job of leaving me to my own devices and like just supporting me, in whatever way we wanted to go, and like our projects and stuff. And even like more recently with Brown, they were really supportive of that. Um, so yeah, I think they're really great, man. I think more of their problems came just from like supply chain stuff, and shit that actually has nothing to do with the actual snowboarding, but the like over manufacturing of crap, like coming in too hot, too heavy, and for every year after that, slowly trying to fix the initial problem, you know?
I heard that Nike pulled out because they weren't making a profit. And then I heard that Adidas also wasn't making a profit, but Adidas was going to stick through not making a profit because they knew that having a snowboard team makes them like relevant in snow communities and it helps the brand like have an image because they dove so hard into skateboarding. I was
Mhm.
super bummed when they pulled out because I was like, I think that it's good that a company as big as Adidas stays in snowboarding so certain people can get paid enough and certain projects can still happen to inspire a lot of people across the board because when there's not that money from Adidas there's a lot of like then there's projects that don't get seen throughout the world because they have the budget and the reach to like inspire like so many people.
Yeah.
And I mean Vans does a really good job of being like, you know, dishing out money to the right things and it's like
Yeah. I think they've taken over that that role or whatever, you know. Yeah. Like you said, Vans is doing a good job of that now, and I guess we'll just let them do it.
and so the big move for you though lately, which was fucking sick, was um Teddy Koo's the team manager. I mean, Sims. How did that come to fruition? I mean, Sims.
Uh, I think it actually started more with Scott, because Sims had been doing stuff in Japan for a while, and the last year of Brown or the year before the last year, we were there, and there was this guy Fumio riding Sims boards, and Scott was like, "Let me try that thing," and he liked it, and ended up taking one back and kind of keeping in contact with the guys over there running the Japan Sims program. And then yeah, I after that, someone was like, "Hey, we should just maybe make this an American thing," and it passed through a couple different hands. We got Teddy Koo to be the TM, and uh, Sims a couple times. We visited her on a road trip, looked through all Tom's old boards, and yeah, they just did some sort of like licensing deal, I think, with her to where, um, we have, yeah, like run with it, and she's super supportive. She's an awesome lady, and uh, the boards are good, and we've just been working on the graphics and stuff for next year because we kind of came in a little late to the design review thing, the first year. But yeah, it's awesome. The team is sick,
The
and
team is sick, dude.
the yeah, the everything else is just it's coming along. Yeah.
That's dope. So you're psyched to be a part of it, and there you feel like this is going to be something that's going forward for years to come. I hope so. Anyway.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, we got Nick B, and he's he's just stepping into his prime, man. That kid should be
Yeah.
for another 10 years at least. And I mean, John is just showing no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, John is just every year and he's just seems to be more and more himself and I fucking love it. I'm
Yeah,
such a fan.
I think he's like he's crazy, man. He's like a fully realized being. That guy. He's one of those people that you can just feel it, like being in his presence. It's like, yeah, like you said, he's fat, he's like there, he knows exactly who he is and what it is, and what, if he even is anything, I don't know. He's like he's a spiritual warrior, that guy, for sure. And like, yeah, just a great dude to be around, and psyched to be on the team with everybody, Scott, and it's a sick team.
There's a new kid from Canada that actually just signed. He left Capita to ride for Sims. His name's Marty. Marty McFly, Party Marty.
Oh yeah, that's
He's
cool.
fucking sick, dude. He's like the best Canadian guy that I mean, he filmed for Mountain last year, which is like
Okay.
a local movie, and he like actually the rail that you hit in Bozrec that you back 50-50 front three out. It's like a really skinny tall
Super
rail in Ottawa.
skinny kink rail, yeah.
Yeah, and Lucas Magoon has a 50-50 on it, I feel like a few years before
Yeah, it's
that.
at that skate spot, right? There's like
Yeah,
yeah.
and he cab 270 it last year, but like so G. It's like
Crazy.
boss, yeah.
Yeah, that
So
kink, I remember that being really steep. I don't think I would have gone sideways through that thing.
no,
That's cool.
definitely. I've been there before, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna hit this. I'm gonna go. And behind the school, there's like the gap to down rail that's like pretty easy to hit in the back alley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't see that one when we were there.
It's
Probably
like
would've
it's
opted
like
for that.
10 it's like 10 more feet to the left.
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
that was pose wreck.
yeah, you guys fucked up. You should have walked a little bit further.
Oh man.
I'm interested to know, and I don't know if you want to elaborate on this, but like I feel like it's kind of there's a level of importance to it, especially in these times where I feel like more and more people are going through it, and it seems like you're doing better than ever. But there was a point where I feel like that you had some like mental health, like so, like a little bit of a breakdown with like I don't know if it was to do with sponsors or whatever. I've just heard it through the grapevine. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all and how that kind of came to fruition, but like
No, yeah, I mean, it just was, it was crazy, man. I was, you know, using drugs and shit, but I don't really. It's still one of those things that I'm not entirely sure what happened. But I was hospitalized for like a couple days and got out and like did therapy, and they put me on all sorts of drugs that really didn't help. Um, and then it was kind of just like a process of getting off those for me, when at least the doctor, like there's several different opinions, but one of them was that like if I got off these meds, I was seriously risking losing it again, having another episode and then not coming back and all this stuff. And but for me, it just had to weigh out the like quality of life, and it wasn't. I was so miserable on. I was on lithium and a couple other things, but it just. I mean, it was just no kind of real life for me. So I just took the risky choice, I guess, at that point of just stopping to take the stuff and really trying to like just control my emotions and stuff, or at least be like really aware of them, and just tell myself like you're okay, you're like just severe anxiety and stuff like that. And um I don't know, like reading all sorts of random self-help books and meditation stuff, and just anything I could do to like that I thought would also help, anything outside of the realm of drugs that I thought would help me not fucking lose it, because my brain just like it just goes. Sometimes it just goes so fast, and it just doesn't stop, and it just goes and goes and goes, and I can't shut it off. Um, and certain things exacerbate that, and I've gotten a lot better at knowing like what I can and cannot indulge in. And yeah, I don't know. I'm right now taking an abnormal psych class actually, through CU, and so I've just been like, I thought it'd be really good to learn about this stuff, but then as I'm reading and I'm finding out this is more common than just me. But
no,
you
I think
take this
it's
class and
very
then you
common.
start to think you have like everything you're reading about. You're like, oh my god, that's me. Oh my god, that's me. Oh my god, I have that. And but it's cool. I love knowing like the forefront of it and where the science is and stuff, because a lot of these disorders are pretty unprovable, or at least like in terms of narrowing it down to like a specific gene, or on the pleasure pathway, certain things that light up. They like for bipolar and schizophrenia and these things, like they still have a really hard time proving it, basically. Like but they know it. They know they've created a box around the symptoms, and so therefore they diagnose people based on the symptoms. But as far as like actual like neuroimaging and stuff, it's still really really far away from being like, oh, this is the bipolar gene, or this is the schizophrenia gene. This is the farthest that they've come that I've been reading about is with depression. It is quite provable now that there's diminished activity in the prefrontal cortex, I think it is, like you're literally just not getting enough serotonin and dopamine, which is why these SSRIs and stuff um, are created to re-inhibit or inhibit your reuptake of the serotonin and dopamine that gets dropped off. So like basically doubling your amount. Like instead of it going in, being used and put back away, it just sits there. So you just keep getting more zings to the happy be happy, you know, be okay with life. Everything's not horrible sector. But you know, those things, like I think I took some of those and they definitely didn't work for me. And I know that it hasn't worked for a lot of people. I think it's like one or two. I don't know. It's not a good number, you know. It's not like above 75% of people who take those it works for. So but they're developing all sorts of other treatments now. Like people are taking ketamine for depression, and that's showing significant signs. They're doing like uh, TMS, like transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is basically like a much mellower version of electroshock, which is fucking freaky, and I can't believe that they do that. But I mean, you know, they're trying, and I think the reality is a lot of people do have mental health issues out there, and they're not just like all in their head, you know. And I mean, or older generations love to just like, you know, they weren't as knowledgeable about this stuff, and they didn't have the science to show like, no, look, this guy actually is not activating over here. Like something is wrong. It's not just needs to, you know, pull himself up by his bootstraps. Like clinically depressed people there's something not working right in there. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I just rambled for a while, but
No, I love everything you said there. Was it to me, the biggest thing is that doctors treat every patient like a number, you know what I mean? Like, and we're all the same, you know what I mean? Where every individual, you know, the way they consume even like fruits, veggies, and what they digest and stuff like that, and what's retained in the body and what's really, like my girlfriend, she's low on like, you know, vitamin D and vitamin A. So we have to take supplements so we can get like, because she
yeah,
knows, because she's got her blood work done. So she knows where she's deficient, where every human is deficient in certain areas.
hmm,
And I feel like doctors, they go, oh, you're depressed. Here's the 2 pills that
yeah,
are sponsored by, you know, the hospital sponsored by these big pharma companies, and they are
absolutely,
incentivized to like to give you these name brand basic drugs that work for 55% of the people, or they
yeah,
kind of help, or they're willing to stay on them at least. And
yeah,
then the other 45, it's the complete opposite, and they go more into depression, or the side effects that come with
are horrible. Yeah,
and it's
I
scary.
think it. Yeah, I don't want to like bash those drugs, you know, because I know they've seriously worked for people, and if it's working for you, I wouldn't want to like tell anybody like get off your stuff. But I definitely think that it needs to be approached on a more case by case basis, and
Exactly. I
more
agree.
like in depth like analysis of like the individual's deficiencies in all sorts of ways. And it's just unfortunate that like, I mean, here, even with, I pay like almost fucking $800 a month for healthcare, and my insurance still doesn't cover like pretty like shit that I would think if you have proof that you have had like mental issues, you should be able to get like a brain scan and these all your blood drawn and your levels checked, and so they can really get to the root of like the problem. But you know, it's not the case. Like to get all that stuff that you would probably need to get done to do, like if someone was like, all right, I'm going to take you on as like my main patient, this is really important, I want to get to the bottom of this, there'd be tens of thousands of dollars of tests they'd probably have to run to get all the real
Yeah,
information to get to
minimum.
the base, and none of us have that kind of money. So it's like just throw him on the antidepressant, you know. Or like, oh, he was hallucinating or he's hearing things, like throw him on lithium. That's the time tested thing for you know, anyone who has shit like that go on. It's just
What
It's
what helped you most outside of, okay, you say the pharmaceuticals weren't working great for you. For you personally, what helped you the most? Was it like meditation? Was it like just being alone and like peace of mind, or did you go through a different diet change?
um painting. Seriously, painting helps the most because it like I said, it like rips your brain away. It prevents those thoughts from just festering and just going, like it is like meditation in the way that when you get hyper focused on something or whatever, you kind of uh dissociate from your thoughts and you don't pay them so much mind. And yeah,
Well,
I
Tim,
I guess painting and exercise, like skating and even just like I've been riding a bike, got into mountain biking just because it's like if I'm not feeling good one day, like a lot of times if I just go out and just sweat and like I instantly feel a lot better because at the very least it pushed some endorphins up into that area that I was lacking.
I feel like there's this clinical depression where it's like not an easy fix. And then there's at least an easy thing, like you just said there, that you could at least help yourself by,
Yeah,
like, if you go for a bike ride, if you change your diet, if you hang around with people that are like uplifting and supportive, and like there's a lot of like easy things that aren't the full answer, but at least they're like a step in the right direction.
totally. And then, it's understandable though that there is like a point where you just like sometimes people just can't even get up to do that. It's like literally impossible. So I get that there's that too. You can't just be like, oh well, he just needs to get up and go, exercise or just he needs to just start eating right or whatever. It's like some people once you're already so far down that hole, it's like it's pretty some people are like really fucked. So
They compare it to a triangle, apparently, depression. So as soon
mhm,
as you get like remotely upset about something, a triangle gradually gets bigger and bigger by the bottom. It's
mhm,
like an infinite triangle. So if you're like upset with something, we've all smacked our hands, with a hammer. And then right after, if you get a phone call of something else of bad news or something like that, it's easy to slip. And before you know it, it's a bad day. And then if
yeah,
you get up the next day and something goes wrong and you already have like a case of depression, it's easy to spiral down so deep. And like you just said, it gets to a point where you're so far down this triangle that it's so hard to climb out of it.
yeah,
It's easy to like, that's why they say that if you're remotely depressed or just being triggered, to lie to yourself and say that you're positive and that you're happy and that you like yourself, even though that you feel like an asshole and you feel like it's not doing anything, your brain uses those terms and uses it in your like it takes like I'm happy, and it uses that, the brain knows that is a positive, and it
mhm,
uses that as a positive. Even though it seems like it's not doing anything, your brain still engages that in the positive category rather than a negative. And it's like
absolutely.
those small steps really do help you. It seems I've kind of been through some of this stuff myself with hitting my head and stuff like that. And I feel
Yeah,
like,
and that's huge, man. That like the more I'm reading this book from the Stanford neuro neuropsychologist. I think he's like interdisciplinary, but he's a incredible. I saw a YouTube video of his and ended up on this book. But yeah, the more I'm reading about his stuff or through his book, it's man, head traumas are huge to this stuff too. Like have such an effect on vulnerability to depression and anxiety disorders and so, I mean, that dude, snowboarding, fuck, I've hit my head quite a few times. I'm sure you have, and it's crazy to think that that could definitely have played a part in the reason this thing's not really fucking firing on all cylinders or this,
oh,
you know?
I know. I got one last year at the beginning of the year, and it was a long drawn out one for sure. That was like, oh, it's fucking like I was just crying for like months on it. Like 2 months after, if anybody said anything that would trigger certain like emotions, I would just start crying. And I've never been
Oh
a
my
crier,
God, man.
and I would just be like, I was at like a family dinner and I was just hysterically crying. And I was like, I don't know what's going on right here. But then I went and
Yeah,
saw a neurologist, and she just kind of broke it down to me how like certain parts of my brain aren't firing right, and everything's kind of shuffled around.
totally.
So I think there needs to be an emphasis on like when you hit your head snowboarding, that it's like chill to like clock out for a bit. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of kids, young kids especially, you know, that look up to you and all your video parts that you've done, they're like, they hit their head, but all they want is that video part at the end of the year. So even if they hit their head and they feel weird, they're like, I'm not going to tell anybody. And the filmer the next day is like, dude, you got this. And it's like, dude, you should just chill. If you hit your head hard and you feel like something's up, like it's
Yeah.
so just bench yourself.
No, definitely, man. And fuck, wear a helmet. Who cares? Like about looking cool, honestly. Like I know I should follow my own advice, but it's just, and the more I'm reading about this shit, the more I'm just like, oh my god, dude. Like definitely that has played a role in this, and I can relate to what you're saying. You know, like I had the same thing. Like I'll just start crying sometimes over like totally irrelevant shit or shit that should
Me
not
too.
be
Yeah.
emotional, and it's just like,
Yeah.
what the
It's
fuck?
so
Like
weird.
it's just, I don't know. You know, it's weird. But
I've
I feel you.
Yeah. I don't know if I've just gotten more emotional because I'm older now and I like can reflect on it. But certain things, like I'll watch a movie. I've never been a crier. And in this last 2 years, it's like certain things I'm watching in the movie, I'll just be like, that's not even crazy, but it triggered something in my head. And I think it's started from like the last time I like hit my head. And like, luckily I wear a mouth guard and stuff, but I always wonder in backcountry, you don't land and you just take a rag doll. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's like, oh, perfect. It's another opportunity to go up. But I was talking with my good friend Chris Rasman, who is obsessed with like how the brain works and stuff like that. And um, we were both just wondering, like, all those mini rag dolls, are those at like compounding over the years to like, you know, like
Maybe.
there's a lot of like, you know, if you hit 20 backcountry jumps a year, you know, probably 10 solid, you know, double flips, or at least one
Yeah,
every time you're hitting a big jump. It's like, you got to pick and choose your battles. Because you're the only one at the end of the
for
day who's got
sure.
to like spend all that time in your head. Like nobody else. It's you and that person. And the exterior of you is just an illusion. That's like, that's not even who you are. It's just a front to the world. You didn't choose your face, your jaw. I mean, let alone if you spend enough money, you can, but like that's who you are, but it's not. It's like you're
Yeah,
upstairs in your own head, and you need to make that a cozy fucking nest, and people need to learn how to do that.
yeah, and yes, I mean a lot of that it comes from just real. I mean, yeah, not being so like being such a thing. You know, I think like I don't. It's like I don't know, if you could always just sit in the fact that like we're all just atoms, and like, you know, maybe this is an illusion, and we're maybe you know, if you could really not get so caught up in the little shit and just like, but life is stressful, you know, and you it's so easy to hyper analyze and just like go down rabbit holes and get and stress yourself out, and then one thing leads to the next. So I don't know the answer, but I I think that, yeah, I mean, meditation couldn't hurt. It's just a hard thing to retain the practice of, you know, and like and be,
Self-discipline. Yeah.
yeah, self discipline in general is like hard for me. So
Same. I feel like I've had quite a few people come on the podcast in the last bit that are pretty big advocates of yoga and stuff, and I feel that I've always wanted to give it like an honest go and not just stretching on my floor and then the entire time I'm stretching, because I feel like I don't want to compare myself to you. I mean, obviously everyone's super different, but my brain does not turn off. Like I have trouble now in the morning, like when I have to like delegate all my like tasks through the day. I'll
mhm.
just get overwhelmed with all like the tasks I have to do. Like I'm
Yeah,
just like, and I don't know, and then I can't prioritize them because then I'm like, I
write
know
it down, dude.
the
That's like my biggest thing. Just fucking get it out of your head and on the paper. Yeah,
like
seriously,
if
it
I don't
helps.
write my to-do lists down, like for me personally, that's the best piece of advice I've ever been given. They're in lots of self-help books, and I feel like writing a list down has helped me. It's just I have to do it. And then
Yeah.
it's easy because then you're like, oh, that's my next thing. But if I try to do it in my own brain, it's crazy.
Yeah, I end up like, do you ever do the thing where you end up kind of walking around the house in like crazy shapes and patterns because you're just like you're going here to do this, but then by the time you get there, you're like, wait, what was I doing over here? And you're like, oh, I'll go do that, and then you go on there before you even get back over there to do that. You're like, wait, what was I here again for? And it's just I waste like an hour doing that some days, and I'm just like, okay, lay the fuck down, take a deep breath. It's gonna be all right. Like just lay here until this shit just calms down and you like have one thing on your mind and then you can go do that. But yeah, it's just the ping pong it's stressful and it's exhausting. It's like
A big thing that I heard is that if you don't, I've said this before, maybe people are getting over it, but if you don't have a why in life and a purpose, that in itself gives your mind too much because then you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're trying to achieve and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people say that once you have like a child or like a kid that's yours, you don't have this like freedom to get as anxious and let your mind wanders as much because you already have so much stuff like in front of you. Like, I have to feed my kid. I
yeah.
have to go to the grocery store right now. And then you stop thinking about like where I feel like when I have the most amount of free time sometimes, that's like, especially when I'm alone, because when I'm alone, my thoughts tend to go to a negative, and I used to think that that was weird. Then I read a book on it, and it's not. It's just like animal instinct is for the beginning of time, animals have been hunted. And so every animal, when it's alone, which we're animals, goes into a tendency to be like, oh, okay, I'm alone in this environment. There could be harm, danger. So you immediately, your thoughts go to a negative if you're alone, which I didn't really know, but 60% of the time or something like that, they say if you're alone, you're you're tended to get persuaded into like thinking about stressful stuff, things that you don't like and stuff like that, instead of thinking the positives, which are
Mhm.
insane. But you have to like teach yourself to think of the positives only, which I feel like then you got to go down that rabbit hole of like meditation and learning and reading books and self analyzing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and then I don't know. There's a certain point where it's just like maybe you're just better off like not trying so hard, but just like learning to be okay with it in all its shapes and forms or whatever, and just not so much repressing stuff, I guess is what I'm getting at, but like just being okay with it and being okay with like not being comfortable and understanding why you're not comfortable and or just being upfront. Sometimes it even just helps to be like, if you're feeling anxiety or anxious or so in a situation, just like telling yourself like, okay, that I am, but that's okay, instead of being like, how do I fix this? Just accepting that you may not be feeling that well or something. It makes it easier to cope with not feeling that well because it's like you're not fighting it, at least, fighting it. I feel like just creates more anxiety within me personally. And yeah.
No, I think that's right. I mean, I literally, yeah, my friend sent me a podcast the other day, and that was exactly what this Chinese guy was kind of talking. He's like a very Zen master kind of guy. And he's saying exactly that. The minute that you can, when you're going into negative thoughts, instead of trying to be like, oh no, I'm having negative thoughts and I'm freaking out, just let that go there. And that's just a thing. It's just like, that's where and just, if you can deal with that, like I'm going negative right now. Life is negative, but being able to just be like, accept
Well,
that and
yeah,
not
you
overthink.
can like third party it, by just acknowledging
Exactly.
it, you become like the looker or whatever, they would call it. Like you are no longer associating it with you. You are not that which you feel. You're yeah, you're severing the connection there and you're looking at it from a different perspective, which it makes it obviously a lot easier to not get caught up in it because you're no longer seeing it as you. Your anxieties are not you. They are just things that you're feeling floating through your, yeah.
I to to kind of summarize that in another perspective is I've always kind of thought of my life as of recently. Um, when I've been kind of in the dumps about like whatever life, fucking, anyone who's listening to this has been through their fair share of bullshit. So some way I always kind of get through it is just like I pretend that I'm the main character in a movie,
Hmm.
and it's kind of been like I look at my whole life like it's the movie, and then you go like, right now the part of the movie is negative and this character needs to like do something dope, because I'm kind of getting, if you're watching yourself when you're doing whack
Yeah,
shit, you would be like,
I'm
like
bummed on
petty
this
stuff
movie.
to your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever like that, or not being cool to your mom. If you were watching it to on an outside perspective, you'd be like, what is that guy doing? He's
Totally.
being like an asshole to his girlfriend, or like, what is that guy doing? He's being like a dink to his friends, or like, whoa, this dude's getting way too caught up in partying. I hope in the next chapter of this movie he gets out of that, because he's
Yeah,
blowing it right now. Like, I just constantly look at my life like I'm the main character of the movie and I have to make this movie dope. Like, and
yeah,
whatever your dope is, like it's different for everybody. But my dope literally isn't like me being this baller with like a big mansion and like, a trophy wife. Like I just want to be in a chill house with a nice cup of coffee and it's sunny outside, and I can just enjoy some beers with friends. Like that'd be like a perfect day for me. So
yeah,
as long as I can achieve that in this like movie that I'm making, I'll be a happy guy.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good technique. I mean, the it sounds like you're, yeah, creating that distance from your your thoughts and whatnot, like by putting yourself in the movie and looking at it from like an objective point of view rather than like
Exactly.
being stuck in your subjective world. um I think that is like the most beneficial, but it's hard, we have all these shit flying around our head. It's so easy to get caught up in your subjective perspective and like just and forget that you can take that step back and look at and be like, whoa, whoa, look at this guy, what is he doing? Tell him to chill the fuck out. Sit
It's
down.
so hard to do that though.
Sit down.
I'm saying everybody that I'm doing that, and no, like I did the most childish thing last night in my relationship. Like I mean, maybe somebody's disappointed in me right now or something like that. But yeah, last night at dinner, I was just like getting up this morning. I was like, why did I do that? Like, fuck,
Yeah,
dude, did
it's
not think
happens.
about the movie.
You get caught in it. It's only, yeah. Well, I think I don't know. These all these books and shit say that like the more you do it, the easier it is to stay there. The more often you go there and stuff. So I think it's just like any other sort of practice, repetition. Like repetition is the father of learning or whatever they say. So
Yeah, it's also
just
like, what's the other quote?
yeah,
Definition
you
of
don't have to. Yeah, go for it.
oh, sorry. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one too. The It's like muscle memory, but for your brain, I guess is what I'm getting at, is like by doing that, those dissociations, and then like looking at it like a movie or something. Like the more you do that, it's just like playing the bass or something. The more you play that scale or that song and sing with it at the same time. When you first started, it's so hard to play and sing, but then after you like worked at it for a while, you you honestly don't even you lose track of your hands. Your hands are just doing it, and you can totally just focus on the singing. So I think, like consciousness probably works in a similar way. Our brains work in a similar way to our like physical bodies. I mean, after all, they are physical manifestations. Like, I don't know. I
They're
think it works.
definitely crazy things. Like it's
Yeah.
it's definitely like I don't fully believe in the power of manifestation, or I would have won the lottery 10 times over, but there's definitely a lot that comes from manifesting. Like if you really want something, inevitably you'll get pushed into that direction. You know what I mean? You'll
Oh,
make that happen. If that's like, if your life's goal is to be, I don't know, the famous party guy that everyone loves to party with, I mean, you'll achieve that goal quite quickly.
yeah. I think, yeah. If you just commit and like wholeheartedly commit, the universe tends to provide. But there's sacrifices you have to make along the way for things like that, and they're not always easy. And to be like totally totally engaged and committed and like to whatever you want to do or whoever you love and whatever. It's like
Well, that's
it's
a
all it's all work on
yeah.
in some way. Nothing just is like totally fucking easy, I don't think.
Especially being a snowboarder or anybody who's similar to a snowboarder and lives that lifestyle. I love and relationships with this stuff is a whole different ball game. Like being
Yeah,
like juggling a relationship and
traveling
like
all
when
the
you're
time.
traveling and you don't have a schedule and the other person thinks that they understand but they don't, and there's no real like, oh yeah, I'm gone tomorrow, and they're like,
Yeah,
oh but we had like a date tomorrow. You're like, well yeah, I gotta go tomorrow, it snowed there. And it's just like,
totally.
how is that easy for somebody else who doesn't understand? I mean, I feel like it's rather difficult.
It's extremely difficult, man, and it's been I've it's been a serious issue for me through the whole snowboarding life. Yeah, maintaining like healthy romantic relationships, or just it's hard to be in love with somebody and be away from them that much. And then it's hard for your snowboarding at the same time, because you're just like, I mean, you want to spend all your time with that person, but you also love your snowboarding. You want to spend time there. It's like you, yeah. I mean, multiple times in my life, I was in a way forced to choose one or the other, and it's just, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, those things usually don't come hand in hand. But what I think is really cool now is like, I guess like girls have always been snowboarding, which is rad, but now I'm seeing like more than ever girls skating and stuff. And I have like a lot of friends who share that in common with their significant other, like snowboarding or skating, and so they get to spend a lot of time together, doing that. And yeah, like, they share in that, like they're both musicians or something. Like it makes it so much easier when you actually both can share that. And like my lady learned how to snowboard, and I've had so much fun up in Mammoth. Just like I have more fun going riding with her most of the time than I do like just going to ride the park, or just cruising around the mountains with my boys, because it's like you get that same juice that you got when you did something for the first time, like seeing someone do something for the first time and learn something new. It's like that juice is palpable. It's like you can feel it, and it's just so good to be around and see like the joy just emanating from someone who's just like blown their own mind, like, oh my
Yeah.
god, I did that. Like,
I did stop, and you're like, yes, you did. Yeah,
yeah.
I love my girlfriend skis, and yeah, I have to say the same. It's like the days I've gone with her are the funnest days ever. I mean, the whole reason why I'm with, if you're dating somebody and it's difficult, just the next person you date, just date somebody who's funny. Fuck, is it easy? My girlfriend's so positive and so funny. It just makes life so easy. It's just like, damn, like
Yeah,
why didn't I date people that were funny and like before? Like,
good
fuck, it's
sense of
awesome.
humor.
Yeah, good sense of humor, always positive. It's like that helps me so much because like we're talking with like the negativity shit. It's like having somebody that's just been, and she's been through like way more shit than me, and she's just the biggest optimist. So it's just like
Great.
it's perfect. Yin and yang. Are you dating somebody right now going into the year? And
Yeah, I've been with my girlfriend Abby for probably 4 or 5 years now.
nice.
Mhm.
Awesome. So she knows the protocol then. She kind of knows the
Yep.
program.
Yeah. We live here in Laguna, and then when winter comes, like we go, and if we go up to Mammoth, she'll come a lot. But other than that, I go on the trips, and then miss her the whole time I'm gone, and then get to see her when I come back. She's actually came to Japan twice, like for those brown trips, and Scott's girlfriend Steffi came out, and like that's another thing that's great about not being on like some corporate uh trip for it's like when it's our thing like that, we can bust ass and snowboard for a week, knowing that like at the end of the week we're gonna take 4 days off because our ladies are coming, and we want to just like hang out with them and experience Japan in other ways. And we have the freedom to do that. It's so just, yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
experiencing
Terrific.
Japan is already amazing, and experiencing it with your loved one is like a whole. I've obviously never done that, but yeah, you guys nailed it. Because my first time going to Japan, we went with Colin Adair, a famous photographer who worked with DC for a long time, and me and Jeeves went on that trip together. And he's like, and we'll go to Tokyo on the first day, and then we'll take the last 3 days off to like go to the countryside and explore. And I was like, no, we gotta like film, dude. Like, I need like clips. And looking back at that, like young me, I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you're going all the way to Tokyo, and you're going all the way to like the northern island like of Japan. Like, go and enjoy it. Like,
Yeah.
yes, go snowboarding, but there's way more to life than snowboarding. Like,
Totally.
go to these old Chinese or these Japanese temples. Like, and that I'm
Absolutely.
so thankful that I had somebody older on that trip to tell me to like slow down and like take it in.
Yeah. That's huge. That's something that I definitely was guilty of when we were younger, was like going places and just, it was just snowboarding, snowboarding, snowboarding. You didn't get to like really soak up the culture as much. But now, I mean, that's as much of the goal as getting eclipses. That's for sure. Going to new places. Going to new places is, yeah, is a huge goal. I don't know
What's your
how that's
favorite
working
place?
out. I don't know, man. That's too hard. But I mean, I guess like it'd have to say Japan, just based on the amount of times we've gone there and gone back. Like we have, almost feels like we have like a little Japanese family there in Otaru, and we, between like Kohei and Kazu and all those Ryosuke, and I mean, we just have like a lot of friends. So it's like the other home. But I
So
mean, damn, riding like the Alps and shit is incredible too, and we got really great group of friends there. Also, it's hard. I couldn't really pick a favorite.
I gotta ask, what's it like filming with Kazu? It's like, is he pretty chill? Is he like what? I've never filmed with him. Obviously, I hit a hip with
Oh,
him one
he's
time, but
yeah. I mean, he's super chill. He's not like, he barely talks, but his actions certainly speak louder than his words, man. Holy shit! Like, guy's just like, yeah, drop me off here, and you're like, okay. Where should I go, man? What's like, I'm usually in the shit seat in the helicopter because I have the least fucking experience, so I'm already like not getting the proper photo of what I'm supposed to be on, and then I'm up there and like I come down, eat shit, get to the bottom, look back up, and then I'm like, oh, that's what I was on. And then Kazu comes down and just like drops 30-foot cliff to flat, stomps it straight into like a back seven off this little wind lip, and just first try, boom. I mean, he is so consistent. It's crazy. He does not fall very much.
is he one of your favorite snowboarders to like to film with, or like what are a few guys?
Yeah, definitely. Kazu's incredible to film with. Like I said, it's super easy going. There's not a lot of talking, and like, I don't know, like uh I when people are in their own head, and then they're like asking you for advice and shit, like looking at the lip, like, hey, do you think I should cut a little more in here, whatever? I'm just like, oh my god, dude, I gotta walk away from you. You're gonna make me start to think like that, and that's really bad. You can't be thinking like that. You're not gonna do it. You're gonna eat shit, and that's gonna work out. Like, I think you just gotta like try your best to not think and just stay in the zone. Like, thinking ain't gonna help me land anything. But yeah, I don't know. I've had the privilege of riding with a lot of cool and talented people, and I I'm really happy with Sims right now. Obviously I've been traveling with Scott, and Butters has been. He and I've been making movies together for so long now. It just feels like we were talking about at the very beginning, like just a nice little tight knit family. Like, and we all know how each other work, and what to say or when not to say anything, and when to just like, you know, ride it out, and it just works, and it's a really good time.
I mean, Brown Simina reeked like that. I mean, Harrison, the whole crew. I mean, Harrison's somebody that's just like snowboarding with him is the best. Like,
Yeah, he's
I've
good
never
vibes
hung, yeah,
most of the
just
time.
I've never seen him bad vibes. I've only seen him good vibes. So,
No, he's definitely, he's most of the time good vibes.
I mean, everybody has a few off days, but
Yeah.
dude, I got a few questions for you here at the end. Thanks so much for coming on again, by the way.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries. I
dude.
gotta pee though, so let's wrap this up.
Yeah, dude. Okay. Do you want to go pee and then, or fuck, we'll just wrap it
Yeah, I
up.
mean, how much longer you want to go for?
No, I'll just fucking wrap it up right now, dude. You gotta pee. That's all good. All right. I just have 4 questions for you. What's your favorite movie?
Snowboard movie?
No, regular movie.
Oh fuck. Oh man, that's so hard. I watch a lot of movies, but oh man, that's so hard. I don't think I can narrow it down to like one
Name
movie.
2. Name anything. Name a movie you like.
Yeah. I mean, I love Tarantino, like all of Tarantino's stuff. I just saw that movie The Lighthouse. I thought that was incredible. Uh I I mean, yeah, I watch a lot of movies, dude. It's hard to like tack it down to one. Yeah.
Don't do it, dude. You'll regret it. The Lighthouse. All right. Second, what's your favorite snowboard movie?
That's really hard, but I'd probably have to say like the first robot food movie, like the cardboard box one.
After Bang.
After Bang probably was like, I mean, the most, that one or Hawkinson Factor were like probably the most influential for me, and like I still just like think of those as, or The Garden. I mean, in terms of like great editing and just, yeah, The Garden was awesome too. And those are 3 I really like.
Amazing. What's one piece of life advice?
I don't do that. I'm not giving anybody advice. I don't know anything.
I love it. Okay. 4, one random fact about yourself.
I gotta pee right now.
Hell yeah, dude. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. I'm a
All
big
right.
fan, obviously. Enjoy your pee.
Yeah, dude. Thank you. I'm sorry. I think I drank too much coffee this morning, and I just
Dude,
gotta go.
we've been on here for 2 hours, dude. It's mellow.
Yeah, that's more than I talk. I'm not a big talker, so you
I know
did a
you're
good
not.
job interviewing me.
All right,
Hang in
thanks.
there, dude. It's good to talk to you.
You too, man. Have a great season, man, and just fucking all the best with life until I see you next.
Yeah, likewise. Peace.
All right, much love, dude. Peace.